Hello, class. We'll be going to formula method on that quadratic equation. Okay, so we're still on quadratic equation, and this is the last method. Okay, not the last method. We still have two more methods to discuss. That's the graphic, the what's it called? That's the graphical method using our graphs to solve. And then I told you of the other method called the push and lose method. But let's see how it goes. Let's see how it goes. Maybe per adventure we might also discuss that method. It's very needful you understand how to use it, since it might become the new method that has come to stay. Now, but let's talk about the formula method, which is in Nigeria we call it the almighty formula. I don't even know why it's called the almighty formula. There are bigger formulas than that, but I guess it's because of during the time it came around, it was like the biggest formula that any youngster had seen until he went on further. When he went on further, then he would have seen more crazy formulas than this. It's actually very direct, easy to form. So first of all, I would like us to do how to generate this formula. Now remember I told you that we had to make use completing the square formula. Remember when we talk about completing the square, we use completing the square formula because of we found out that not everything can be solved using what factorization, right? Yes, but notice that completing the square is not it's more like a step-by-step procedure in solving something, right? It's more like a step-by-step. So the first step is to make sure it's a unity, that the equation is a unity. Then you take your silver to the other side. Then you find the half of b, square it, add it to the question, then form your perfect square. You get that kind of stuff. It's just a step-by-step stuff. So in formula method, we applied completing the square, but now we took all these steps that we're going through and formed them into one new formula. Let me repeat myself again. I'll repeat myself. In completing the square, it's more of a step by step. So they said, why go through all this step of doing this, doing that, doing this? Can't we take all this step, mesh them into a formula, and give it to you once? Now, that's what formula method is. Formula method is a compressed, condensed version of completing the square. It is just take everything, bring it into a formula, and let's use. You get that? So rather than take all this step by step that we'll be doing, we'll just get one formula to solve it all. So welcome to formula methods, and let's begin by showing us how did this formula come about. Okay, so my board wiped, and let's start. Now, remember this is the general form of a quadratic equation. It is ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0, right? Yes. Now, we want to work with this using formula methods until we are down to the least to what we cannot solve again. Now, remember, in formula method, the first step is what? Make sure it's a unity. Now, a is here, and remember, we're trying to make sure that this a here is a unity, right? So, since this a here is at this place, what do? We divide through by a. So, I can just tell you that we divide through by a. So dividing through by a, we have ax squared over a plus bx over a plus c over a is equal to 0. Now, since we're dividing through by a, we know that a cancels a here and every other one remains. So that will be what? X squared plus b over ax plus c over a is equal to 0. So what's the next step? This one goes over here, right? So that's what we do next. To be x squared plus b over a x plus, okay, sorry, then that is equal to negative c over a, right? Now what's the next part again? You take your b, what's your b value now? Your b value is this, b over a, right? So if you take your b value, you find the half of b, find the half of your b value. What's the half? So if you have your b value as b over a, sorry, let me take that. If you have your b value as b over a, so to be half times what? B over a, which is equal to what? 1 over 2, or let's say b over 2a, right? Yes. Now what's the next thing again? You square it, right? So after doing that, we then apply it into the both sides, our left and right hand side. So let's do that. That's a mistake. Okay, so let's do that. It will be what? X squared plus b over a x, then bringing our new added value, that will be plus b over 2a squared is equal to b over 2a squared and then minus c over a. I had to use this one. I had to bring some at this side since it's a positive value. Let the negative value stay at the other side. So let's continue. So we have now, since we've done this, we can now form the perfect square using this particular one, right? Yes. So that will be what? X, and then bringing it here will be what? Plus b over 2a raised to power 2 is equal to what's here? Here will be what? Now I can open this bracket to have what? B squared over 4a squared minus c over a, because here is b squared, here is 4, 2 raised to power 2 is 4, a raised to power 2 is a squared. And then I can continue. Continuing, I have now x plus b over 2a. Let me still leave this, let me not take it 3 yet. And then I can find the LCM. LCM of this and this is what? 4a squared, right? And that is 4a squared. And then I can say 4a squared divided by 4a squared is 1. 1 times b is b squared. 4a squared divided by a is 4a. 4a times minus c is what? Minus 4ac. Draw my distance. So what's the next thing I can do here? I can then take away this my square sign here by taking square root of both sides. So taking square root of both sides, I remember when you're taking square root of both sides, when you're having a square, you put your plus or minus, right? Yes. So I do that. I say x plus b, that's over 2a is equal to plus or minus square roots of b squared minus 4ac over 4a squared, right? Okay, so let me move my screen over to this side a little bit. Move it just a bit. Okay, so proceeding, we have what's the next part? Okay, let me just come down here and continue. We have x, and then now plus b over 2a is equal to, now remember I told you that these square roots can break down for the numerator and denominator, so I can break them down because I saw that if I break it down for my denominator, I can find the square root of 4a squared. So that will be what? Plus or minus, we have b squared minus 4ac over square root of what? 4a squared. And what's the square root of 4a squared? That will be 2a. So that's x plus b over 2a is equal to plus or minus, we have the square root of b squared minus 4ac over what? Here is 2a now. Now I can take this one over to this side, and that will be what? That will be x is equal to, when this goes over here becomes negative, right? Minus b over 2a, and then we have plus or minus square roots of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So what's the next thing after this? You can see that they are sharing the same denominator, so we can take one denominator for the both of them. X is equal to the denominator 2a, and then we have minus b plus or minus square roots of b squared minus 4ac, and we are done. Now this is what we call the formula method, using the or applying formula method. This is the formula we use for formula method. It's sounding one kind. So this is how you can call it the quadratic formula. So this is our quadratic formula. X is equal to what? Minus b. All these things denote positions. So if I have a question, the b is whatever value that falls in the b position, that's what you put for the b. Then we have b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So in our next video, we'll apply this formula in solving questions. So I believe you understand how, using completing the square, we can generate a formula that works for quadratic equation of whatsoever kind. Okay, so check the next video. Let's begin solving questions applying the formula method. Thank you.